So I'm going to start working on the subwoofer portion of my speaker system soon. The subwoofer, I'll be making that soon after I finish the front speakers, but I'm making the amp for it because I've had the components for ages, and I can test it out on the current speakers I have since they've got sort of inbuilt subwoofers. So this will be the case that I'll use, just a cheap one from J-Cars. It's relatively small and plastic, easy to work with. So what I'll do is I'll try to fit the two main components I have into it. One is a power supply. So this here is 48 volts and about 10 amps that it can provide. So it's quite a hefty power supply. It's probably overkill. I could probably get away with a 5 amp one because the capacitors in it will provide a decent amount of power for the sort of peak driving. Or if not, I can always add bigger capacitors into it later because I'm sure there'll be enough space for them. So 48 volt power supply is also somewhat dangerous. And the next thing I want to show you is this. So this is the actual amp I'm using. It has like 4 channels in total, but they're all combined into just one 600 watt peak channel, which will be perfect for the subwoofer I'm using, which is also 600 watt peak for the single 8-inch driver I plan to use, like a Polk Audio 8-inch woofer. So not much to say about it really. It can take up to like 50 volts. I'm guessing the more voltage you provide it, the more of that total power rating you're going to be able to get out of it. You have 2 adjusters or 2 potentiometers for volume and your crossover frequency. So the frequency that it will ignore the rest and just start playing what's below it. On that same board with the potentiometers that just has ground and left and right signal. And I'll probably only be using one of those left or right channels since the audio video receiver I have only has one output. But you could hook it up to a stereo system as long as it's signal input. It'll all be fine. Instead of using sort of ugly, looks like Bakelite plastic at the front, what I'll do is I'll cut out a nice aluminium plate. I'll actually space this with a small air gap here and have this be, the front plate be a bit bigger in diameter, so it's oversized. Let's see if I can get all of it to fit in though. I'm going to have to detach the heatsink. Now this should be, there we go. Also, like I've taken this apart previously just to, as I said, just to check it. There's literally 2 of these pads overlapping each other. So I removed the useless one. These aren't put together very well. And that'll easily fit in there. Just gonna roughly place all this stuff. So it pokes out there, and might be too big of a gap.
like how this looks, but I need to trim some of this. Okay, so what I've decided to do is I'll trim off the about 2-3 millimeters here, and I'll trim off all of this, and then there's only, this needs to be rewired to over here, which I'll do with a simple cable. And then there's these 3 pins that I need to readjust. One of those is part of this little adjuster potentiometer, and a little tiny resistor squeezed in there. Then the rest is just getting rid of this big bulky thing, which I won't need because I'll be soldering stuff directly to it. Just know the orientation that they come in. Don't want to burn myself. There we go. So we now have the resistor free. Oh, thank you for standing up. And there we go. I have now freed up all this space. Alright, so it looks like these things might just come out jamming a bit of a screwdriver in the thread hole. And we'll see if I can pluck out these. I push it for starters. It has come loose. Yep, there's one. Two. Oh, that one just popped right out with it. Yeah, that's all clear now. Well, that's been trimmed. It's not the most prettiest thing in the world. Glue all this up because I didn't like that shaking about. One thing I have noticed, this loose bit of track here is connecting this ground. I was connecting positive to this lead here, which is just for the LED, but I will still wire that up. It just goes to anywhere. So now that fits fine. There should be plenty of room for the fan there. There's plenty of room for this thing. I might adding another fan though, like here. If you're placed around here, then you can go somewhere there, and this can go up there. Yeah, that's fine. Active and neutral. I shall check this again. That's going fine. Alright, well, I'm just got my cable here. I'm going to solder the DC side. It doesn't even poke through. The blob of glue will insulate that. Yeah, that's well secured now. You can go there, and you can go here. Perfect. Alright, so I can easily fit everything into the back of this, including 2 fans. I have this, which is the perfect size. Oops. Could go over here on the left hand side, but stick with the left here. I think they look better on the bottom. That's pretty good. Doesn't look too bad. As you can see, they're not exactly flush. They have a recess in them, but they're not big enough for these nuts. So whatever, fail on their part. So it's going to look something like this when it's done. Very simple, minimalistic. And there's that little air gap, but you only see it from a real harsh angle.